Welcome to the F Sharp Podcast, presented by Harmony Wealth, a podcast geared to educate you on all things financial. Co-hosts Tanner Bortnam and Adam Henning discuss various financial topics presented in a consumable and entertaining manner. Tanner is a certified financial planner, JD, and financial expert, while Adam is a marketing professional and small business owner. It's time to harmonize. Sit back and enjoy the episode. Your future self will thank you.
Welcome to episode 49 of the F Sharp Podcast, presented by Harmony Wealth, a podcast geared to educate you on all things financial. I'm your co-host, Adam Henning, marketing professional and small business owner, and I'm joined, as always, with co-host certified financial planner JD and financial expert Tanner Bortnam. Before we jump into this episode, if you haven't yet, please like, subscribe, leave us a review. If you have any questions or suggestions, shoot us an email at podcast@financiallysharp.com. That is podcast@financiallysharp.com. Also, if you're watching us on YouTube or want to watch us on YouTube, search Financially Sharp Podcast, and don't forget to click that bell once you're there. Subscribe to our channel. We appreciate it very much. The 49th installment of the F Sharp Podcast is our quarterly market update. This is quarter 3 update for 2023 as we record it on Sunday, September 24th, as we welcome in Tanner. Tanner, how are we doing? This podcast will be released on Monday, so tomorrow, September 25th. So welcome to the podcast, or the episode,
Thank you.
I should say. Sometimes we mix up podcast with episode.
That's all the same.
Yeah, welcome, sir.
What's up?
Good, sir. Oh, nothing. We won't get into personal.
That's right.
Emotions.
That's right. We're not going down that tangent of football today, so we're all good.
Yes. So
some of us
do
are
your
all
research,
good, but
I'm a Vikings fan. It's Sunday, September 24th, so go watch what happened on Sunday. So, anyways, as the weather starts to break, the leaves start to turn colors, and fall hits. We're ending quarter 3, heading into quarter 4. Did we perform as expected? Higher, better, worse? How did the markets do?
Yeah, I guess that kind of depends on. Yeah. Well, maybe not. Maybe similar. Maybe similar actually. I think it really just kind of depends on what your expectations were. To start the quarter back in July. My expectations, I actually think the markets did pretty well this quarter. Since we started the year out really hot. If you go back and listen to our quarter 2 update, I remember saying something to the extent of, I wouldn't be surprised if we give some of this back. We, went up really quickly, not a ton of data to support why we went up as much as we did so quickly. And we gave a little bit of it back. July was a good month. August, not so much. September, a little bit worse. But overall for the quarter itself, the S&P is down 3%. Nothing to really get too worried about with that. I think that that's a pretty good quarter. Like I mentioned, based on having such a high value to start July at, data is starting to catch up. That makes it a little bit better and makes those numbers a little bit better. But I still think we're probably overvalued even at this point with a 3% pullback over this quarter. Inflation's still high. Companies are making money, but we still have, and inflation isn't as high as last year by any means, but it's not at that 2% mark that the Fed wants. And so, we're still 3.5, 3.7 range. So it still means they have some work to do. And unfortunately, the inflation works kind of like a bell curve, right? And that last bit is the hardest to get out of the economy. The first parts are easy. That last part's the hardest and takes the longest. So, kind of jumping into that, I guess, or segueing into that, the Fed raised interest rates 0.25% in July. And then at their last meeting here in September, they left them the same. So we're now at 5.5% for the federal funds rate. It is expected that, based on the the statements made by Jerome Powell, who's the Fed chair, at this last meeting in September, keep saying that inflation is sticky. It's it's tough to get out, and so they're likely gonna. They keep saying likely have to stay higher for longer, and what the market is reading into that is probably one more 25 point or 0.25%, I guess we'll say it that way, hike yet this year in 2023 at some point before the end of the year. And then we'll see how 2024 turns out. But they're likely going to have to keep interest rates, at 5.75% up there for a while, or until we go into a recession where now they actually have some wiggle room to lessen that and start lowering them and ease that a little bit.
And this is the high water mark still, 5.5% in this little what bubble or whatever you want to call it, last 3-4 years.
Yes, yeah. This is the high point of where we've been since. Don't quote me on it, but I believe somewhere before 2010. But so before like the 2007 2008 financial crisis, we haven't had interest rates be this high, or the federal funds rate. So yeah, I mean, we're a lot higher. But again, as we've reiterated time and time again on different episodes, this is actually normal interest rates when you go look back at history. What we have experienced the previous 10 years is the anomaly. And I know people got used to that, but like 3% mortgages are not sustainable. Like, that's not normal. Those were the Goldilocks, like perfect scenario for people. So if you have that 3% mortgage, kudos to you. You're likely not seeing that again, or at least not seeing it again for, quite a while. It's going to take quite a recession for the Fed to lower interest rates basically back to zero. Because that's the thing, you got to remember, mortgages were at 3% when the Fed's fund rate was basically at zero, or like 0.25. So that means the Fed's going to have to unwind everything they've already done by getting up to 5.5. They'd have to take it all the way back to zero for you to have somewhere around about that. And again, it's not perfectly correlated like that, but it's a guide, right? So interest rates just aren't going to go down to that level again. So, if you're looking for a home, you're going to be waiting for a long time if you're going to sit there and wait for it to get back to 3%. I'm not saying that they can't come down from where they are, but what I'm saying is this promise that's out there sometimes of, oh, just wait and, do this refinance in a year back at 3%, like that just isn't going to happen unless something comes up where we get into a very, very bad recession, which no one is predicting is going to happen. So some huge curveball would have to come out and cause that, for us to have some big recession like that.
So prognosticating for a little bit here, will they, once it does start to come down, will they lower these basis points as slow as they raised them? Or
yeah, good point, or good question.
Plan?
It depends. It really depends. Let's walk through some of these paths. Now, again, I'm stating what I think would potentially happen, or what the market thinks could potentially happen, but it's all up to the Fed and that board of people to choose what they do. If we hit this Goldilocks soft landing where they're able to manage this and get inflation down, towards the 2%, 2.5% range and not cause a recession, I think they just leave interest rates, because that is what got us there. And they are creating a bigger buffer for themselves when a recession comes, because again, recessions are going to come in the future. It's just a matter of when they hit. And so the higher that interest rates are when you get a recession, the more wiggle room you have to lower interest rates to help soften that blow of the recession and hopefully not have it be as, as drastic as it otherwise could be. And that's the tool of the Fed. That's their tool. Congress has their tools. they just throw money at things, as we've seen anytime we have a crisis of some sort. So the Fed's tool is lowering interest rates. So I think if they hit this soft landing, I think they probably just leave interest rates where they are. Maybe they drop them by 0.25% or something like that. But like, I think they just kind of leave them. Now, let's say we go, and I'm making all of this up, so I don't have a crystal ball, but let's say we go into an actual recession, Q1, Q2 of next year. If that happens, most of the market believes that it will be a shallow recession. Again, we've touched on that numerous times. That's still the main thought, is we likely will go into a recession, but it should be pretty shallow. That allows the Fed to lower interest rates to help get us out of it quicker. How much they lower them really depends on how shallow or how deep that recession starts looking like it's going. If things really start looking like, the wheels are starting to fall off, they can drop it a point in a meeting. They can drop it. They can do whatever they want. I would say historically, though, they tend to lower interest rates much quicker than they tend to raise interest rates. So if that is a guide, then they're probably bigger drops than just 0.25%. But they have to be careful, because having if a recession comes up, you want to lower interest rates to help, handle some of that. But at the same time, if you drop rates too much, you could be causing panic in the markets, because people read into that like, oh, wow, things are really a lot worse than we thought because they dropped it a whole point. You can cause kind of mass panic, and it could be unjustly done, or people could be acting irrationally, but they may act just off of how big the interest rate move is. So they have to try to factor that in too.
As we were kind of preparing for this episode, we were just bouncing back and forth of, what happened this quarter. It's been kind of a quiet quarter. As you zoom out from the previous market updates that we've had, no bank crisis in this quarter, or trying to think of the other noteworthy things that happened in Q3.
Only one rate in high. Yeah. Only one rate hike. Inflation is getting more under control. Yeah, it's been, there's no election going on. It's been a pretty boring quarter, and sometimes, but that's okay. Boring is okay.
No news is good news.
Yeah. That's okay. So that's kind of it in terms of interest rates and the Fed. Let's see some other things that we have going on this quarter. We have a possible government shutdown coming up that, again, may start October 1st if an agreement isn't reached prior to that. From everything I've been reading, it'll be non-essential workers, but I believe the last agreement that they made, that Congress made, pushed out any of the debt ceiling, though, to 2025. So there's no concern about that, or we're going to default on our loans, anything of that regard, until 2025. But this is, non-essential workers, and their checks could be delayed, or anything that you're trying to apply for with the government, or things like that. It could really throw a wrench into those people's lives, and also slow down any of the applications and different things that are out there that are being worked on or being applied for. So hopefully we don't run into that, but we'll find out.
Non-essential.
That's what they call it. I don't know exactly what all groups are that.
Yeah, we heard that term group, for COVID, the pandemic and emergencies, but I'd be interested to see how they define that from a government worker standpoint. But anyways, last government shutdown, 2018-19, lasted 34 days. Anything we can learn from that, or anything worth mentioning on anything like that? Do you?
Again, I would say from a market standpoint, it tends to historically not have a huge impact on the market itself. Now, from all of those individuals that are part of that group of non-essential workers, or people working with those groups of people, No, it's a huge pain in the butt. I mean, think about that. 34 days, it's a month. It's just over a month. You're not getting a paycheck for over a month, or you're not having whatever project you were working on be worked on for a month, or you're not having your application gets delayed a month. Like there are, it does throw a wrench into things. It's not something to be taken lightly by any means. And obviously we should, in my opinion, try to avoid these. That would be ideal. But, Congress, of course, always likes to go until, the midnight hour right beforehand, because one group or both groups are trying to exert, pressure over the other group and have leverage. And the leverage is always just time. The closer you get, the more everyone starts to negotiate. And it's kind of dumb. Like, how many times do you have to keep doing this? Why don't you just start negotiating a month ago so that we don't get into this situation constantly? But they must love high stress situations because they continue to give themselves these types of situations.
They love panic.
Yeah.
So kind of one of those things I feel like everybody just glosses over at this point. So,
oh yeah. Yep.
We'll keep our eye on that and see if that comes October 1st, what the world gives us. So as we close out quarter three, time for rebalancing, all the fun stuff that we normally talk about as we head into the final days of the year. What can we do from a personal finance standpoint to make sure we're all in check there?
Yeah. Yep. I think this is a really good quarter or time period right now at the beginning of the quarter, because you still have 3 months before the end of the year. We always talk about rebalancing. If you're working with an advisor, they should have a rebalancing schedule they're working on. If you're doing it yourself, hopefully you've created a rebalancing schedule. If you haven't, probably a good time to rebalance. Some areas might be out of balance based on how quickly things went up at the first half of the year, and we kind of just stalemate a little bit here for Q3, again down just a little bit, but so might be a good time to rebalance, look at that before the end of the year. Some other things that have to get done by the end of the year: Roth conversions. We have episodes on that. If you want to learn more about what those are, go back and listen to those. I'm a huge fan of Roth conversions. I'll be working on analyzing these in the fourth quarter for all of my clients and seeing whether it makes sense for them. And if it does, executing them in the fourth quarter, because they have to be done by December 31st. They have to be done by the end of the year. So don't wait till the end of the year. I mean, you're going to run into all those holidays, and it takes some time to get a Roth conversion done. It's not something that you typically just call up, your custodian that holds your money and say, I want this done. And they, it's not like executing to buying a stock or something like that. That's instantaneous. It's something they have to process. And so it can take quite a while. I'd say give it at least a week. So don't push yourself to the end of the year. Get that analyzed, see if it makes sense for you, and get it executed if it does. And then another one that's really good to check in right now is if you are trying to max out your 401k, really good time to see how much you have in there right now, so that you are hitting that maximum on your last paycheck of the year. Again, we've gone over that before in previous episodes, but just real quick, the reason behind that is if you're getting a company match, you want to max out your 401k on the last paycheck so that you maximize their match. Because if you max out in July, you're missing out on half a year's worth of company match. So always try to max out your 401k in December on your last paycheck, or even if you miss one paycheck, that's better than missing half of a year. So definitely something to calculate now and see if you need to make some adjustments so that you're hitting that maximum towards the end of the year and not before that.
Very good. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up this market update?
No, I think that's basically it. Like we said, it's a pretty boring quarter. So, check on those three things that we talked about at the end: Roth conversions, maxing out 401k, and rebalancing, and you should be good going into the end of the year.
Awesome. These market updates are one of our more popular episodes. So if you're here for this, we thank you. But check out some of our other episodes. Some of the things that we talk about, we've already touched on in previous episodes. So go through the list of the previous 48 episodes and give us a listen. So we see that you're listening and we thank you. We hope the episode has been helpful. As always, again, thank you. If you haven't yet, please like, subscribe, leave us a review. If you have any questions or suggestions for a future episode, shoot us an email at podcast@financiallysharp.com. That's podcast@financiallysharp.com. Until the next episode, stay sharp, friends. We'll see you next time.
This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be relied upon as a basis for investment decisions. This podcast does not engage in rendering legal, tax, financial, or other professional services. Investment advisory services are offered through Harmony Wealth, a registered investment advisor authorized to do business in states where registered or otherwise exempt from registration. If you have questions pertaining to your specific situation, please contact Harmony Wealth at 602-935-5155 or at harmonywealthaz.com.